I'm looking at paragraph 17 of the paper. The heading here is Strengthen Family Cohesion and Safeguard Children. I'm upset with the heading. The government always encourages childbirth, but we see a high divorce rate nowadays. So that means half of the families are divorced, and children born in a divorced family, they face huge mental problem. In the UK and Australia, there is a system that emphasizes the co-responsibility of parents. Our judges in Hong Kong have been calling for the same joint responsibilities of parents. Our panel supports this idea, and we haven't got a submission from any community organizations that objects to this idea. But we've been talking about this for 20 years, and we still haven't seen the legislation enacted for this. And in 2018, the government organized social welfare centers to support divorced families, but it didn't work. We don't have laws to deal with the responsibilities of divorced parents, and the education we have been offering to parents isn't working either. So we have to first educate parents before we ask them to give birth to children. This legislative session is coming to an end soon. I want to know if the government will launch the legislative exercise to provide for the joint responsibilities of parents. Also, I've got comments that the district care teams have done a great job during the number 10 typhoon. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the government for its work. Secretary, we have discussed this a number of times. Mr. Ambrose Lam has told us about the views of the legal sector, as well as the views on the Children Proceedings Parental Responsibility. We will try drafting a bill, but as we know, there are divergent views in the community. For divorced parents, they are facing many disputes in terms of maintenance fee. Starting from next year, we will, through the 5 working parent centers, offer support for organizations or groups with strong views on this. We will see if there is going to be a change in attitude. At the community level, if we manage to forge a consensus, it will provide a better and a more robust basis for the government. It's not actually that hard to draft a bill. We have already drafted one. What matters is that we need to have a consensus in the community. We don't have to align with each other exactly, but we need to at least have a proposal that's acceptable and agreeable to most people. So we have to first focus on education so that there won't be too many controversies before we commence the legislative exercise. As to when we can enact a legislation on this, I cannot say for sure. We hope that we can work on what we have now, and once we have a platform and when those who care about this agree that we have the conditions to launch the bill, then we will move towards this direction. Chairman, I'd like to add one point. The government always says that there are opposing views. Well, can you please direct the opposing views to me so that I can learn about why they're opposed to this? So far, I haven't heard any opposing views. So I completely do not understand why the government is still not enacting the legislation. Secretary, do you have anything to add? I understand we will continue to work with the legal sector. If there is concern, we can talk to the 5 working parent centers. We can also talk to the Law Society. So please do not misunderstand. We're not trying to stall things out. We don't have this intention. As you can tell from the current term government, that if there's a need to make reform, we are very willing to do so. But when it comes to enacting legislation, if there are strong views, strong opposing views from community groups, we cannot simply ignore them. We're talking about women, the socially disadvantaged. We do not want unnecessary disputes in the community. We have to make sure that things can be taken forward in a steady manner. We have to first get things right in our education and provide the information to parents. If we are sure that this can benefit both parents and children, then of course we will move towards this direction. However, if the preparatory work is not done and we just roll out this bill, there will simply be disputes and arguments. So we want to be prepared first. We want people to have a better understanding of this. That's why we're focusing on education. And if we have the favorable conditions, we are willing to enact legislation.
Well, I have already said what I had to say. I have nothing else to add. Thank you, Ms. Doreen Kong. Thank you, Chairman.
Secretary, I'd like to follow up on the question asked by Mr. Ambrose Lam about the Children Proceedings, Parental Responsibility. I understand totally that we have to have a consensus at the community level. However, we have come across those who support the enactment of legislation. Well, the bill has been there for years. I want to know if there are any objective ways for us to gauge whether there is a need to have the legislation enacted. For example, will there be an objective way for us to decide on whether there's a need to enact the legislation? There must be divergent views in the community. I want to know if there are any objective criteria to decide whether there's a need to enact the legislation. For those in the legal sector, they're of the view that it has been some 20 years. We just want some objective ways to decide when it is necessary for us to enact legislation. Secretary, it is true that it's hard for us to use data to decide when it is necessary to enact legislation. Starting from next year, we'll step up education. But even with education, we won't be able to completely change people's mind. However, we should at least offer assurance to people. We have to let people understand that the parental responsibility scheme is not something bad. However, it's hard for us to gauge whether this is necessary. At the end of the day, it will be up to the Secretary to make a decision. There will definitely be opposing views, so the Secretary will have to make a political decision then. If the Secretary is of the view that there is a general consensus, then the Secretary will take up the political responsibility to give a green light to this bill. However, if there are strong opposing views at the community level, then the government will have to explain to the legal sector that we haven't yet reached a point where it is appropriate for us to pass the bill. However, if we do have a consensus, we are willing to work with the legal sector. We may ask for the Law Society for help. It's sometimes hard for us to explain to the grassroots. We have to make sure that they understand. We have to ease their concerns. We think that this is good for them, but they might be of the view that after the passage of the bill, it will worsen their lives. So we have to address the fear. at the bottom of their heart. We have to address their worries and concerns. We have to put ourselves into their shoes. So at the end of the day, it'll be the secretary who will have to take up the responsibility. We are actually starting our work in this area.